Hmm. Well, I know that we are live, but I do not appreciate my watch not vibrating and letting me know that we're live. Process show, everybody. Wednesday, September 26th. We are going to take a look through some Fantasy Cruncher again, uh, delving into the stack, no stack strategy for the end of the season. I'm hoping that we can find some more conclusions, or at least potential conclusions. Adam, how has baseball been going for you in your no stack land?
I mean, it's still been just a miserable experience for the last month, but I do still think that the mini stacks or no stacks are the way to go. I mean, especially just this time of year, especially with all the things that we talked about before, with pinch hitting, with bullpens that are well rested, can match up easier. And I think lately also we've just had on a lot of these slates a lot of really good one-off spots and less good stacking spots. I think it was 2 days ago. I think it was Monday. There weren't a lot of one-offs I liked, and I actually said that I liked stacking quite a bit. But like yesterday, there were a ton of teams that I hated, almost every hitter except for a couple I really, really liked. And that's been the case a lot lately. So I think that it's still been going pretty well. Not for me personally, but I think the strategy's been doing pretty well.
Yeah, it's weird. Every day that I look at it, I think, okay, this I can see a situation where I don't stack here. And then I look at like a lineup that finishes third and it's essentially stack free, or it got to like a random two man, nothing planned clearly. And then I look at another lineup in the top three and it's a 5-3 stack on DK, and it's like I don't know what to do
Well,
anymore.
and I think one thing worth pointing out with doing that, and it's something that I feel like goes overlooked a lot with the way people go back and analyze tournaments, whether it's in regard to this conversation, stacking versus non-stacking, or you'll see it especially when NBA starts and you see 70% owned players. People have a tendency to go back, and because like during the day you'll have the conversation about do you fade this guy at 70%, do you play him, whatever, and then people go back at the end of the night and there's a tendency to be like, oh, this guy was in the 70% owned guy was in the winning lineup, clearly he was a good play.
Yeah,
He was
that's
in
not true.
70% of lineups, and that's, I think, also worth considering when you talk about stacking versus non-stacking. Such a massive majority of the field is using some kind of 5-man stack, whether it's 5 and 3 or 5 and 1 offs or whatever. That just the fact that there's a couple of non-stack teams in the top 10 means you're probably pretty disproportionately weighted towards non-stack teams finishing highly.
I think that you are very right there. I wish I could disagree, but no, you're right. Um, so let's take a look at it. I have yesterday's slate up right now. I have my projections as they were entered in my final crunch. So all we have to do really is play around with settings. I'm not, and like every setting here is up for grabs, whether that's randomness, whether that's uniques. If you want to force in any type of small stack as a guarantee, I think there are plenty of different directions to go there. So
Yeah, and
on,
I
oh,
think,
go ahead. Sorry.
and I'll say, I think if you're playing like 150 lineups, that you can certainly, run sort of different crunches and combine them together.
Yeah,
Some 3 man, some 2 man, some non-stacked, whatever. I don't think that you need to, just set on, oh, I'm going to 3-man stack, 12 different teams today, and that's going to be all my lineups. You can certainly mix it up.
yeah, that I agree with. If you so you're starting, let's say we're looking at 14 games for yesterday, technically 13 with the Boston Baltimore rain out. I would probably start at 3 uniques.
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
I have no randomness in here right now, and I think that's probably a decent spot to start if we're going with 3 uniques. I will pull all of the stack information out. The only thing we would have to talk about then, and individual player exposures, that is something that you can be tweaking as you're doing this. I have it in right now, hitters at 23%. You think that's a relatively reasonable spot for a whatever, what did I say, 13 12 game slate? 12
Yeah,
game
I
slate.
still I usually go up to 30, but I mean that's obviously arbitrary and whatever.
Okay.
And it's only a couple of hitters that I'll do it on. Like I would have done it with Ryan Braun, Nelson Cruz, um, probably like Otani, Trout. Like I would let those guys get up to around 30.
Lucky me, I froze Fantasy Cruncher. Happens a lot. Happens a lot. So let's kill the tab. Do I have this open twice? Nope, it just thinks it is. Great start. Fantastic start.
Always nice to start off smoothly on a Wednesday morning.
Yeah, I have a feeling that when I run this crunch, the lineup is going to win the mini-max.
Oh, that wouldn't be tilting at all.
No, not in the slightest. All right, so we're going to run 3 uniques. We are going to run no randomness, no minimum salary, 23% to hitters. Did I crash it again? Yeah, anytime I try to click on the pitchers button, that's not working.
Are you mini stacking this one or not stacking?
I'm going to do no stacks whatsoever.
Okay.
At least I'm going to try. Cruncher not cooperating, but that's okay. We still love you, Cruncher.
Is Cole Stewart in the player pool naturally? I'm trying to pull it up now, but mine just froze
from yesterday. Oh, yours is doing that too?
It just unfroze.
Oh, okay. He should be. I had 25% Cole Stewart yesterday, so.
Okay, I didn't know if you manually. Oh yeah, there he is.
All right, so let's just let 150 rip. Based on my projections, 3 uniques. No salary limits. Exposure at 23%. It'll be slightly higher for pitchers, but I don't want to click on the button and ruin this tab again. So we'll take a look at it afterwards. No stacks. This is a completely unstacked version of yesterday's slate. I think that it's going to win the mini-max. To win the mini-max, we need 198. Wow, 198 won the mini-max last night.
Yeah, what? Oh, Josh James was like 24% owned on DraftKings.
Holy shit, was he really? I didn't look at it. I had a similar amount of that. I would not have if I knew that he was 24%.
Yeah, I didn't get to him there. I kept trying because like that whole mid range just died, and then it was just like I either want Scherzer or I'm gonna go with like Robbie Erlin SP1.
Yeah. Anti-crime dog popping the mini-max last night. Shout out ACD.
Nice.
5-man Brewers stack, 3-man Yankees. What'd you say?
I missed that tournament. It's such a fun tournament.
It's my fave. It's the bane of my existence too.
I wish I could, if I like had to lobby for like one thing on DraftKings as far as what you can play, like I should still be able to play the mini max in like golf and sports that I don't play. Like I get not letting me play it in baseball and basketball, but
$150 entry fees for the mini max for me yesterday. I won a crisp $151.
Don't spend it all in one place.
Making money. Red panty night in the Engelman household. Alrighty. We've got 150 lines, and my pitcher exposures are set at 29%. I always go a little bit higher than hitters on DK since you need 2 of them. Highest scoring lineup, unstacked, is 151, which is god awful. So I've noticed something. We'll pose this as a hypothesis right now. I think that my projection system is not suited to running Fantasy Cruncher unstacked.
Why would that be?
I don't know entirely. My thought process would be that I have way more regression to the mean than other systems, and that it naturally has I don't know if over projected is the right word, but my lower tier guys, so guys that generally hit like 7th or 8th that aren't, Gary Sanchez, who would be a good example that I could scroll to. Even like Hernan Perez, a guy that I'm probably going to get on a points per dollar value higher than most systems. And I think that my extremes, my high end, is going to be lower than most people. So it's grabbing a different sort of cross section of people.
Have you tried, obviously it takes time to do, but have you tried to see if your results change if you actually like manually cut your player pool down more? Because that's one thing that I definitely do when I'm not stacking to kind of avoid like the guys with no upside getting in there, is I definitely like cut a lot of guys out of my player pool that I'm willing to just not have, so that I get more concentrations of guys with upside. So like all my value guys end up being the Ryan Braun, Kristen Stewart, Cole Calhoun types.
I have never touched my player pool on a hitting perspective. Now that's also because I'm usually predominantly stacking either 4-4 or 5-3 or something. So
right.
In those scenarios, I don't want to disregard anybody. Very different style of going about it.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that makes a big difference in like how effective you're likely to be.
Yeah, and that makes it tricky to go back through rewind then too, because obviously we know what happened. So selectively removing anybody is not going to help. But
yeah, I mean, I was able to do it when we did the show the other day. I happened to remember it was like a smaller slate, so I knew who I had had in my player pool, and I knew kind of what my exposures were. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one key is that especially on DraftKings where you're hunting home runs, and that's part of the reason that I advocate not fully stacking. You can go through and kind of figure out with all the data that we have now who is really likely to hit home runs, and so I want 150 lineups of the guys who I think are the best plays in their range and the most likely to hit home runs, kind of mixed around with each other, hoping that I hit one or two lineups where they all come together. I don't want to like dilute that player pool and have a bunch of random $3,200 7 hitter who has 3 home runs this year like mixed in.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I think that having individual randomness could be the answer to that.
Yeah, very, very well could be.
So right now, like I said, we didn't run that with any randomness. That was just a flat hope for the best. No stack crunch, and I didn't get close to it. That was 3 uniques, no minimum salary marker on a 12-game slate. Or I keep saying 12, but it's actually 13. Yeah, today is a 12-game slate.
Mine's taking its sweet time to run. I narrowed down my pitcher pool to the guys that I was on yesterday. I haven't touched.
I don't trust clicking on the pitchers tab right now.
I haven't touched the hitter pool. I only have 90 lineups made right now because it's taking its time. My highest is at 147.5.
Yeah, that time it worked. I changed the visible amount of players to 10, and I was hoping that worked.
I also manually bumped up Cole Stewart and Robbie Erlin's projection a little bit because I'm using Cruncher's projections. I don't have mine saved, and they were both way lower for those two, so it wouldn't have given me like appropriate amounts.
I crashed the tab again.
There you go.
That is not appealing right now, but it's probably me. Probably some sort of Google Chrome memory leak.
Mine's there it goes.
Okay, so let's think about it like this then. That obviously was not the settings combination that we were looking for, at least using my projections. So, is the issue that I'm not getting enough people or that I'm getting too many? I don't really know the answer.
My guess is too many.
Yeah, do I still have that? I guess that crunch died too. I'm going to lower the amount of uniques to 2 and add 10% flat randomness across the board. Actually, let's do 20. 10% on a 10-point projected guy is only 9 to 11 in that case, so probably not enough. Gonna go fully unstacked again, though. What I say we needed 190 to win the minimax?
198, I think.
150 more coming up. I wish that I could set this, but obviously it would make running this really weird. Should it be bouncing everywhere? I wish I could automatically have it highest to lowest in actual and just wait for them to pop up. But if you sort in the middle of it all, it just throws everything else at the end of the line. EMAC, he's a full convert to Herman Marquez now, per the chat.
Yeah, it's about damn time.
Michael Wilmoth said, Dodger stack failed last night, but he won because he had Braun with him. Ryan Braun, big pick from Adam, big pick from Jake. He was Jake's home run pick last night. Jake got the double dong to take the lead in the home run contest and to tie up the tiebreaker. Tiebreaker is most double dong plus games.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Braun coming through off the righty reliever was not anticipated, but the first inning homer off Gomber was pretty predictable.
Yeah, that it was.
Yeah, the Dodgers thing was just frustrating because one of my friends that I talked to a lot was high on the Dodgers yesterday, and I spent all day telling him that he was a huge fish for stacking them on DraftKings at those prices. And then by the end of the day, once like I'd found Cole Stewart and Turnbull and stuff, and I was just like, I can do it. It looks good. And then like they sucked.
I love that you said one of my friends and didn't plug anybody else in the industry because I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Shout out to people that don't get plugs on this show. Yeah, 198 from Anti-Crime Dog. This time I got 164.75. So that would have been, top 100. Not as high as the 22nd that I had on that day. That's neither here nor there. Yeah, I don't know what the missing link is, but I definitely think that my projections are the problem with treating this unstacked. It's as if... So I think that I'm using a lower base than everyone else, whereas I think if we were using like 75th percentile outcome projections for everyone in my system, that it would look different.
I do.
Yeah. Or just even boosting, hitters across the board, which I guess in theory I can do. I have that mechanism in my sheet to change my projections and re-upload them. This is obviously just a 1-day sample, but I don't believe that I have the ability, as my model is constituted, to crunch. Do I have this open twice for real? I really do. Maybe that's been the problem.
I'm attempting to go through and, to best of my memory, at least like get my hitter player pool to how I had it yesterday.
Okay.
With how quickly my computer works, I'll probably be done by like the end of the show.
Oh, that's good. That should be perfect timing for us.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is for me, though, if I wanted to change that. So I'm thinking that I need even more randomness. So what I'm going to test is 1 unique, 40% randomness, and see where that shakes out. And if this isn't the spot, then I'm going to re-add my projections that I had from yesterday's slate with my individual player randomness. Silly question from EMAC. If you boost everyone by the same amount across your pool, wouldn't it proportionally be the same?
It would.
No, because of salary.
More lineups with like cheaper pitching and better hitting.
Yes. Yeah. It changes the scope of the value equation because you're still dividing by salary for that value, and it's changing the distribution of value. So it will be different in terms of the construction. And the only reason that I know this is because it's something that I've tested out. All right, so I bumped that to 40 and 1 unique. So it's going to give me a lot of, my best guys. Tons of Scherzer, tons of Robbie Erlin, tons of Chris Stratton, tons of Josh James. Some of that stuff I'm not happy about.
Yeah, 2 of those 4 are good.
Yeah, Scherzer for sure. All right, there's 150 lines. This is 40% randomness, no stacks, 1 unique. 160. I don't think that I'm going to break that 160 mark unstacked. I just don't think that I can get there with the way that my projections are set up. So,
how much James and Stratton are you getting?
A lot. 20 something percent.
Yeah, so I mean, so like 40% total.
Yeah. No, yes. Probably more. Probably 50.
Yeah, so I mean that'll do it too. Like it might not even be your projections. It could just be that you have a shitty pitcher in half your lineups.
I mean that's certainly true. But I also would have had 30% Erland and 30%. Like I had that yesterday, regardless. Right. Yeah. So yeah. I do see what you're saying. I wish that we can get just the hitter portion of this of these crunches.
Yeah, and I guess that brings up another point when you're going in and, for anyone doing stuff like this on their own, whether it's baseball or basketball or football, whatever, if you're going through and trying to figure stuff like this out, I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea for the exercise to use the pitchers that were in your pool that actually did well.
Yeah.
But get yourself 150 lineups with where the pitching is right and just see if you scored higher with, one-offs or three-mans or whatever. Just be careful, and this is, I guess, specific to baseball. Make sure that you at least within those pitchers that did well, you get a good sampling, because like you don't want to just have 100% Erlin plus Stewart because that worked out, because that's going to give you a completely different distribution of lineups than your Scherzer lineups would give you. So you want to still make sure that even though, those guys are the best point per dollar plays, you still get plenty of Scherzer lineups in there. But I think that for the sake of the exercise, taking out even guys like James and Stratton that you would have played, just to, kind of see where you're getting the most upside makes sense.
I just got to 176.45, which is the exact score that put me in 22nd yesterday, which is fucking weird. But it's Scherzer and Cole Stewart. Like, if I lock Scherzer and Cole Stewart, I'm going to assume we'll be close to winning the mini-max.
Yeah, and then you want to just, if you're going to do something like that, then you want to obviously compare it across all three different like lineup builds, because I mean you're cheating as far as trying to win the tournament, but
yeah,
you can compete against yourself basically and see over different slates, where you're scoring the most.
That's a great way to put it. Run this with Scherzer and Cole Stewart locked, no stack. Run it with a 4-4. Run it with a 5-3. And see which one's producing the highest results because, I mean, honestly, what this is, it's two separate exercises. Getting the hitting piece correct and getting the pitching piece correct don't really have anything to do with each other.
Right. Yeah, and then just make sure that you're do some like Scherzer plus Stewart locked, but then also do some, Erlin plus Stewart if you were like me and that was something you did yesterday. Just because when the pitching pricing is that extreme and the disparity between them, you're going to get completely different lineups, and you were probably playing both combinations. But just taking out the pitchers that sucked, like that had nothing to do with your hitting.
Yeah, so I have this still at 40% randomness and one unique, and that's clearly just as random as it gets, because now by locking Scherzer and Stewart, I still only got to 160, and that's about as preposterous as it can be. I think that if I put this down to 0 and bump that back up to 3, but still had Cole Stewart and Max Scherzer locked, that we're going to see it. But again, I really do think that my projections are set up better. I mean, this is just a total guess. I think they're set up better to be stacked than not stacked. And I wish I had like the time or like the brain to figure out why that is. It's just, I don't like, it's better at holistically finding groups of value than individual. I don't know. I could be making all this shit up.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm trying to think of like why or how that would work, but I'm not sure.
I think a lot of it would have to do with sort of the rigid nature of the projections. Someone like, oh God, who's a good example? Like Jose Miguel Fernandez is a guy that is probably one of my 3 highest point per dollar plays every single day.
Right.
Because he is highly projected in my projections, and they are not like variable on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
So those effects are different when the entire lineup is quote-unquote one-offs compared to when he is just one piece of 4 or 5 coming from the Angels.
Right. And so kind of could it just be that like you're not, or like ISO isn't weighted heavily enough, or as heavy as it should be for one-off lineups compared to like stacked lineups? Because like Fernandez is a good example I talked about a lot yesterday, because I thought he was clearly one of the top point per dollar plays, 3.1K on DraftKings, hitting at the top of that Angels order. But I also kind of hated him in tournaments because the chances of him, hitting 2 home runs are just virtually non-existent.
Yeah, let me see what I have his randomness set at solo. So he will get 10% randomness, which is probably like less than half of some of the, like Judge gets 21% as of right now. Okay. Anthony Rizzo gets 20, although he doesn't ever hit a home run anymore. Harper gets 22, so that would put him about half. I don't know whether that's relevant or not, but I just re-uploaded my final projections from yesterday with my personal randomness in there. So I'm going to let that rip on the 3 uniques, but individually everyone will be different. Keeping Cole Stewart and keeping Max Scherzer locked for our base. And I believe, Scherzer Erlin is the combo that Anti-Crime Dog won with yesterday. But
that was, I imagine, the highest Owen combo.
36% Scherzer, 30% Erlin. So, yeah.
What did Erlin end up with? I didn't even go back and look.
14.85.
Okay, so he lost to Turnbull and Cole Stewart. Okay, so and that's an example of what we were talking about earlier with the top of the leaderboard thing. Yeah, your conclusion from that should not be, and obviously not saying yours is, but just in general from talking to people before, I know some people think this way. Your conclusion shouldn't be Erlin was a great tournament play because he was in the winning lineup.
No,
Turnbull and Stewart were both lower owned and outscored him for less money. It's just that nobody played them while everyone played Erlin.
Right. 100%. Dan Riddle in the chat says, how do you arrive at your randomness percentage? So for me, I did some statistical work taking a look at isolated power relative to sort of like ceiling type projections compared to a player's median projection. And based on what I project a player's isolated power to be, that person will get a relatively higher or lower amount of randomness, so that I generally catch some type of slugger more often than I catch someone that's not a guy with a ton of pop. Like D. Gordon, for example, will have a 0 randomness for me. Generally speaking, if I have 10 guys at D. Gordon's projection, he'll rarely come up as a one-off in that scenario because other guys could have more randomness. So you just need one particular guy to pass him in that crunch. That's overly simplistic, but
yeah, it makes sense though.
Yeah. All right, 150 with my own personal randomness in Cole Stewart, Max Scherzer locked. 165. I think it's my projections.
I'm almost through my outfielders, so
okay. I think my projections are the problem. So what I want to do now is just do a 4-man stack. 1 4-man stack, the rest of it will be one-offs. It could be a 5th guy for a particular team, who knows. And if I were going to be stacking yesterday, that was 13 games. That's 26 teams. Average stack amount would be 4%. So I would want to go 2.5 times that. I'm going to set my stack cap at 10. This would be what I would basically normally do, only I would normally have a second stack. So I'm gonna try to meet our strategies in the middle and do 1 big stack, mostly one-offs everywhere else. I have a feeling this will be the one that is getting me into the 190s. Or it knows who I am and is letting me know you will never win a mini-max. Fuck off. Which I'm starting to think is a realistic scenario. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yeah, that's a frustrating feeling.
That's okay. I want a harder tournament this year at a more ridiculous price point. Alrighty, 150 lineups. 4-man stacks capped at 10% per team. Highest score, 171. Yeah, I cannot crest that top area. So who is putting me there? Yelich in the mini max last night. Ownership 4%. I got Yelich on this most recent crunch. Not at all? That can't be right.
I don't even have him in my player pool from last night, so that'll probably hinder me.
That will certainly hinder you. Why would I not get any Yelich? Why wasn't he in your player pool last night?
Just because he was super expensive, and I would have taken Mike Trout over him in every lineup. Yeah, he probably should have been, but
I literally didn't get any Yelich last night. So Yelich is in the winning lineup, 32 fantasy points, 1 run, 2 hits, a triple, a homer, 6 RBI. If you're not going to get him in your player pool, it's probably going to be difficult to get to 198.
I'm going to see.
Ryan Braun, though, I did get in 23%.
I'm thumbs upping the guys that I really liked yesterday because since I'm using Cruncher's projections, I'm trying to get this as close to what my crunch would have looked like if I played 150 non-stack lineups yesterday.
That makes sense. Dana in the chat, if D Gordon is a 0, then what is Gallo's randomness in your projections? Probably, I mean,
200,
20 something. And again, I'm still playing with the weight of it all and how much more randomness I should have on higher ISO guys. It's all a work in progress, but this is the type of thing that I would do. I would change it and go into lineup rewind and go through 10 different slates. Yeah, 158.45. I just cannot get myself to Yelich. How bad was his value yesterday?
I mean, it was pretty. He was facing a lefty at the same price tag as Mike Trout, more expensive than like a million other outfielders. Like, it was pretty tough to get there unless you were full stacking Milwaukee.
5,700. I had him. Okay, so yeah, I was never going to get Christian Yelich. Lefty. Trout projected for 11.64 fantasy points. $100 more expensive. Jock Peterson, I had projected higher than him. Charlie Blackmon, all the guys around him. He has the lowest projection of everybody that I have on my screen right now. 9.13 is what I had him projected for. So all the randomness in the world is not going to get a 1.6 value guy into my lines unless I'm stacking fully.
Right. And that's where, I mean, stacks, obviously it's nice because you pick up that guy where, you were never going to play him. But I don't know. And I don't know. I'm actually interested to see, like, was he totally necessary? I mean, there were outfielders that did really well yesterday.
32% at 4 or 32 points at 4%. I assume he's in every lineup in the top 10.
Yeah, most likely. Especially because like Braun went off, Aguilar went off.
Okay, so he is not in the third place lineup. Finished 5 points back. Had Braun, had Rendon, had Freddie Galvis with 23 at 1.3% ownership. So that'll help you if you can nail one-off Freddie Galvis. Maybe it's not one-off. Nope, and he had Franmil Reyes too. So the old two-man Padres stack in the late night hammer at 3.6% ownership. HIV positive transgender in the chat says, I will never play Ryan Braun ever again. That's probably a bit extreme. Then again, you do have a very extreme YouTube handle. Gotta get this win. When you said, I mean, that's false, did you mean me? Or were you talking to HPT? All right, so I ran a double 4-man stack so that I can pray to God that I get at least one line with God, what the fuck is his name? Christian Yelich. I'm mentally gone. I'm already thinking about basketball players.
Yeah. Don't blame you.
Now I really want to. Okay, so I got a 171.45 in here right now. Who would have thought that the Padres 4-man of Osmer, Myers, Galvis, Franmil Reyes would have been decent yesterday? Not I. Not I.
All right, I'm running mine now with my player pool, thumbs up guys on my favorite hitters at each position going into yesterday. And then at pitcher, I took a couple of guys out like Stratton and James and just have Scherzer, Stewart, Erlin, and Turnbull, who were the 4 guys that I was heaviest on, liked the most, and pitched the best. So we can more effectively look at hitters this way.
I would agree.
The problem will be that I have to. It's hard to compare it this way. Like, I can't compare it to full stacks because I deleted so many guys out of my player pool that I don't have them.
Yeah. I just finished my crunch on my 4-4 stacks on DK. Actuals get me to 182.45. That is without... Wow. 182.45, and I didn't get to the Brewers. That is a Nats Padres stack. Gets Wieters, gets Rendon, gets Harper. 182.45 would have put me in 11th yesterday. I am very confident that stacking is essential with the way that I have my model set up. I just don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, it's probably a bad thing if you're not going to stack. It's probably a good thing if you are going to stack.
Shit. You got me there. I'm in no position to disagree. I can't figure out like if I should be. There's so many questions asked right now, and this is the type of thing that I can't wait to deal with in like February.
Yeah,
getting prepped, like just going through everything.
Yeah, I'm pissed at myself. Like like we said before, I'm still pretty unfamiliar with Fantasy Cruncher as far as stuff outside of basic stuff, and it never even occurred to me until we started doing this within the last week or whatever. Like I've been having the stat conversation with a couple of people, one that agrees with me, one that doesn't, since May, and it's basically just been like, do I want to be unconventional and just blow my money being wrong? And it's like, yeah, I won't. Didn't even like dawn on me to just go in and be doing this all
and check
long.
It out. Yeah. That's why we're here. That's why this is the process show. It's not just about process to you guys. We are revolutionizing our own processes day to day to day. And I love it. I love doing this stuff. I mean, ultimately, everybody just wants to get better. This is the easiest way to do that.
Yep. 189.45 is my top non-stacked with my player pool.
189.45 puts you in a tie for 7th. Let's see what that guy had. Did he stack? He had a 3-man Nats stack. Nope, he stacked a 4-man Nats, Scherzer, Turnbull, Jose Fernandez, Neil Walker, Ohtani, and Galvis. So that was a 4 with no one, Scherzer and Turnbull.
I want to see what happens if I thumbs down Jose Fernandez, because I probably have 30% of him, and he was someone that I was kind of actively avoiding as a one-off unless I had to have him. Although I did thumbs up a bunch of first basemen, so that should have had the same impact anyway.
Okay. Here's something that I didn't think of. So Anti-Crime Dog hit 198. What did he get from hitting? 3415, 1485, minus 198. So you got 150. It was 149, but we'll say 150. Would you consider that to be a goal from your hitting?
Yeah, because normally, I mean, obviously it varies by slate, but if you hit 60 at pitcher, that's normally a really good outcome, but a doable outcome. So 60 plus 140 or 150 puts you in the 200 to 210 range.
Okay. So if you need 150 out of your hitting, I just want to think about this on a player by player basis. 150 at hitting gets you to 1875 per spot. So not stacking, your goal is basically the equivalent of 1+ home, or like a home run and change.
Yeah.
In 8 spots. How many home runs are hit on an average 12 games or 13 game slate? I have no idea what the answer to that is.
I have zero idea.
That's probably pretty relevant.
Probably like 2 a game or something on average.
How many?
Like 2 per game, maybe.
I thought you said 0.2 per game. I was I'm confident you're low.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like on average, I mean 2 to 3.
Yeah. Okay. So we'd be saying like on a 13 game slate, probably somewhere in the 25 area would be a safe bet.
Yeah, I would guess. I mean, this isn't based on anything other than me just throwing a number out there, but it kind of intuitively seems right.
Yeah. I want to go down another rabbit hole, but I'm not sure what it is. I think I'm going to switch to 5-3. And I'm going to allow I'm going to keep that same spread of 10 and 10. We'll see how different 4-4 is to 5-3 for last night. Again, maintaining the Scherzer Cole Stewart combo, 56.45 fantasy points between the two. I believe that Scherzer Cole Stewart is the nut combination for yesterday.
Yeah, probably. I think so. So this new one, I just got to 198.45 non-stacked.
You get the what?
198.45.
You won the mini max.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, I still ended up, even after thumbs downing Jose Fernandez, I got 29%,
What the fuck did they have him projected for?
7.78.
Really?
Yeah.
7.78. And you got 20 something percent of Jose Fernandez, even with a thumbs down?
Yeah, and thumbs up on like 4 different first basemen.
How is he coming up like that? What? Can you sort that by value?
Do what?
Uh,
Oh, the position.
yeah. How is that even coming up anywhere remotely close? Like, how is that high?
Well, I mean, he was like 60% of the price tag of everyone else.
That's crazy.
So out of the first baseman in my player pool, he's not the highest projected. He's at 2.5. It must just be because it's forcing in a bunch of expensive outfielders.
How high is he in value, though?
2.5. But he's lower than Muncy, Santana, Encarnacion, and Rizzo.
Okay, so that's a good thing to talk about here. I'm gonna hope that this doesn't crash, but it might. Okay. Please don't crash. Please don't crash. Please don't crash. Okay, so I have Jose Fernandez number 1 in my value metric for first baseman. This is in the entire player pool. I got 2.6, but everybody else is in like the 1.8 to 2.2 range.
If I give someone a thumbs up and someone a thumbs down, does that show in their value?
No.
Okay. Then yeah, the projections seem really weird because
A thumbs down to Jose Fernandez will remove 8% of his projection.
Right, okay. So Muncy, they have Muncy projected for 14. They had Santana at 12.2, Encarnacion at 13.8, Rizzo at 13. Those are all insanely high projections.
I have one guy ahead of 10 or over 10 at
Right,
first base
yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah, I mean those projections are just insanely high. So that's why Fernandez was only like the fifth highest projected or fifth highest value here. But yeah, I must just still be getting 30% because it's allowing me to get the guys that I thumbs up in the outfield, like Trout and Otani and Blackman and Cruz and whoever else I had.
I think this makes for an interesting thing to do then if people want to look at their player pool. Sort it by value from high to low. You're going to get the guys at the top of the value list almost assuredly. But it does make for a good spot to figure out if that's the type of guy you do want to get a lot of. Like my top value is Jose Fernandez. But if I'm playing one-offs, his top value might not be that valuable to me.
Right. And that's I sort by value when I'm setting my individual player exposures for that reason, because it'll show me that I'm going to get a bunch of Jose Fernandez. And if I have my hitters, capped at 30%, but I know that I only want 10%, I can just save the time of crunching 150 lineups to find out that I have 30% Fernandez.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I switched to 5 threes on this last crunch. I hit 175.45, which I think is the score that I actually had. No, but 176.40. So I beat myself. Yeah. So right now, I think the lack of Yelich is hurting me, although I am getting him now because of these stacks. He's in my top 2 lineups at the very least, but it doesn't appear that I can get myself into 190 naturally, even locking in the nut pitchers.
I would have also won the $10 extra inning with that lineup.
Yeah. Good idea not playing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it's not like it's a random lineup. Like everyone in here was people that I think I wrote up this entire lineup yesterday, possibly.
All right, I'm going to change my number of uniques to 4 and leave my stacks as they are. I'm going to remove all of my randomness. This is what is going to get me a mini-max victory. And then I'm going to take this process and use it always, just from one piece of evidence.
Right.
That is the message we're putting out here today.
So to, I guess, expand this to other sports, since baseball is ending, obviously with NFL, and I got, actually, this is a good point because we had talked about it before on the show the other day. I think that the first way that comes to mind for me to use this in NFL would be with like my theory that playing Patrick Mahomes naked is probably a really good strategy right now. You could go back to last week where, he had a pretty good week and figure out, were you better off forcing, stacking with him and Watkins and him and Hunt and him and Hill or whatever, or just running a bunch of lineups with naked Pat Mahomes running around and correlating other spots, like, correlating, making sure you have someone from New Orleans and Atlanta, but not worrying about having any Chiefs position players, and see, how that works out.
That's a good point. And that is something we could definitely take a look at over the next 15 minutes or so after this crunch is finished.
Yeah, and I mean, NBA, obviously, you can just play around with like position stacking, like, point guard correlation's a thing,
Yeah.
or scorers playing against each other.
Yeah. I might need to go fill my water before we do this. Got to get this win asked. What if you unlock pitchers, Josh, or just lock one? The locking of the pitchers is mostly so that I can get rotated through hitters and compare to the same baseline. I don't want to be right, or like I might get the right answer, but it has 140 points because it grabbed the two pitchers that ate balls last night instead of like this is an exercise in figuring out what to best do on the hitter side. Locking the pitchers or keeping steady pitchers is kind of allowing me to be able to look at it like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you're taking 150 lineups and trying to figure out what the highest scoring one is, you don't want to add the extra noise of, oh, well, this one nailed the hitting, but the pitching sucked, and so it's not even going to be on my radar as a really good lineup.
Right. I'll never see it because it's the 65th lineup on the list.
Exactly.
Because if I can lock in the two nut pitchers and still not get into like the one like higher than 175, then something about that method isn't working for the day.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, it's not like, cool, I would have won every tournament with this lineup. It's not like I get anything for it. Like, I clearly am cheating to get there, but I'm trying to learn in the future what roster construction process gives me the highest upside.
Yeah. Are you still running any crunches over there?
No.
Okay.
I'm happy now that I won every tournament on DraftKings.
There you go.
Actually, I'm going to run a 3-man. Yeah, so I'm going to keep my player pool how it was, and I'm going to just run 3-man stacks. So obviously I'm going to put it like 20%, which is higher than I would normally do for stacks. But obviously there's only so many teams that I can 3-man stack with the player pool that I set.
Okay.
And I'm doing the same thing with the pitching. I only have Scherzer, Turnbull, Stewart, and Erlin in the player pool.
I hit 180 on a 5-3. Seems to be my peak. That would have been 15th.
So I need to beat 198.45 with this 3-man stack.
Okay. While you talk about how that stack's coming out, I'm going to go fill my water quick.
Okay. So I'll sit here and very slowly watch these lineups populate because my computer sucks balls. But so far, it's giving me a bunch of Dodgers, a bunch of Cleveland, a bunch of Rockies, Angels. So this is my guess is this is going to end up being a very poor crunch because it's going to just load up my lineups with a bunch of teams that did not come through yesterday. But I think that if I'm going to run 3-man stacks with this strategy and still using it as a way to basically just have a bunch of my favorite one-offs, I'm still going to cultivate my player pool and cut it down quite a bit because I don't really want the extra randomness of having teams that I have no interest in having, a 3-man stack of the Giants or whoever in AT&T with my guys, mixed around them. I would rather just have as much of the teams that I like. So even though it didn't work out yesterday, the fact that I'm getting, a bunch of 3-man Colorado, a bunch of 3-man Angels, 3-man Dodgers, those are the teams that I was really interested in. I'm getting some 3-man Nats, some 3-man Indians, like Houston, those were the Seattle. Those were the teams that I was highest on yesterday if I had to pick stacks. So I think it's at least representative of what I was doing. Not sure if it'll work out. I expect that it won't, because if you were stacking, you probably kind of needed to be on the Brewers, at least to some extent. And I know that's not really going to give me this isn't going to give me much Brewers exposure outside of Ryan Braun. So I doubt that it'll work, but we'll see. In general, going back over previous slates, I've been finding that 3-man stacks were doing a little bit better than my completely non-stacked lineups. Again, just using my player pool, but forcing the correlation of getting all of the Brewers that I liked into the same lineups, or all the Rockies I liked into the same lineups. So I had been scoring a little bit higher on most slates when I've gone back and done it. It's been 3-man stacks score the highest, and then my non-stacked and my 5-man stacks have been pretty close in terms of top score. This is the first time, though, that I've actually gone through and just completely eliminated the poor pitchers in order to kind of hone in on what hitting combinations make the most sense or did the best.
I'm back.
Okay, cool. I'm at 135 lineups. I expect this crunch will go pretty poorly.
You're not looking at chat, right?
No.
Okay. Question in the chat. What is the max buy-in that you would feel comfortable doing with? He said that lineup, so I assume he means the one that won it.
Well, I actually really like the lineup, but to the point of the question, that's something to me that I think kind of people ask it a lot. And if you're playing within your bankroll, play your best lineups.
Yeah.
That I don't really, outside of, obviously you don't need to go as far off the board necessarily to win a $1,000 buy-in, 40-person tournament or whatever, as you do to win a $10, 20,000 person tournament. But, you can just take, one stand in the higher stake stuff and be by yourself. But in general, if I think something is the optimal way to approach a slate and it's it's the best lineup I can make, I'm going to play it in however high stakes I'm playing. Like I don't play chalkier because I'm playing for more money or anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't think that I can get to this. I don't think that I can get to 150 points on the hitting side using my projections.
My 3-man highest score is 189.45, so lost by 10 points to my non-stacked.
This is going to be my final hypothesis.
I'm confused. This didn't even give me a stack, so I'm confused. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong crunch.
I'm going to do 2 3-man stacks, hoping to catch the best parts of 2 teams that pop. No idea if this is a worthwhile shot in the dark. But you know what? There's only one way to find out. Yeah, it seems like I'm getting in the neighborhood of like 120 to 130 from hitting. And that's basically like I'm missing an extra homer somewhere.
My highest scoring 3-man is 195.45.
Damn.
Followed by 188.45.
Got to get this win after your explanation. Said, I assume you aren't going in MMEs with that. I think you're saying the exact opposite. You would absolutely have that in an MME tournament without any issues.
I'm not really following the question.
I don't know. Neither am I. Got to get this win. Expound on that. Water is delicious. I was finally able to go to Walmart and get our water coolers filled.
So I will say, so the 3-man, even though the score was about the same, the 3-man stack I think is a lineup that I like much, much, much less than the one that came up in my non-stacked. Like this one, it's my highest scoring, but it's got like a Franmil Reyes one-off, who's someone I would have probably had like 5% of. Tops. It has Gene Segura, who I wasn't super on. He was just someone in the player pool if he ended up there. So whereas the other one, like every player in there, I was like, oh yeah, I really liked this guy a lot yesterday. This one, it's kind of like, oh, cool. This is a random lineup with a bunch of guys that I was lukewarm on that just happened to all mix together.
Okay. What's the cash line yesterday in like a cash? All right, so $5 double up. Cash line was 114. I'm wondering if I should be looking at this in a different direction and think, this seems like a decent way to play cash.
What, stacking or non-stacking?
Both?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not much of a cash player, but I have always thought that in baseball people don't stack enough in cash. Or they're not that they don't stack enough, they're more averse to stacking than they should be instead of letting a slate dictate it.
Yeah, in theory, I mean, I would think that stacking is more beneficial in a cash scenario than not. But
Yeah, I mean, it gives you a higher floor.
yeah,
It obviously you take on risk, but on a lot of slates, I think that getting 3 or 4 guys from the same team is good because it's pretty unlikely that, the Red Sox against some AAA pitcher gets shut out. It's not all that unlikely that you pick the wrong guy.
right. So he expounded on this and said, so do you just enter single entries with a lineup like that? I assume you aren't just popping it in an MME because you like it.
Well, I mean, like, so that was a 150 lineup crunch, like that. If I were just not stacking lineups and playing 150 in the $10, it would have been in there.
Okay.
It
That's where I
wasn't.
thought you were going with this.
Yeah. It was a lineup that I really liked. Like I could have seen me landing on it if I hand made like a single entry lineup or something. But I don't know if it's the one that I would have played. Like it wasn't my highest projected, I don't think.
So are you normally playing 150, ignoring like this being the last week of the season?
Normally I've been playing like 50 lately because I was playing 150 in the mini max to like work on my strategy, and then I can't play that anymore. So I haven't been playing 150 just because I am still learning stuff as far as MME goes, and me throwing a couple $1,000s a night into a strategy that I'm still working on and don't think I'm the best at, like, just wasn't something I really wanted to do, especially at the end of a season.
Makes complete sense. We should line up some time next week to do some lineup rewind NBA stuff, although I'm not entirely sure how deep we can go into that information.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely something that I think, as we talk about it, we'll probably be able to come up with more ideas.
Patriots news broke 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I saw Burkhead to IR.
Yep.
How'd Sony Michelle do? I was only half watching that game.
I'm almost positive terrible, but I don't really know the answer to that. All right, so this was my 2 3-man stacks. Let's see how that shook out. I don't think it shook out very well. I'm scrolled down way too far. 174.45. I think that's my ceiling. I think.
Guess that's about as high as you've gotten, I think.
Yeah, I can't get much over the 120 for the hitters.
So I guess one thing I could add to the question about entering that lineup, I do think that the non-stacking stuff, like the non-stacking strategy, is certainly easier to be successful with if you are max entering than if you're playing like single entries, because there's obviously so much variance in any individual hitter, and it's really difficult to get a bunch of one-offs in the same lineup, to all do well. But I think that if you're playing 150 lineups or something of your favorite one-offs, you're gonna, on the slates where where you are correct about a lot of stuff, you're gonna end up with some really good lineups. Whereas if you're playing 10 lineups, it's, even if you're correct about a lot, it's still really easy to just have lineups that have 3 duds in it. Whereas if you're single entering and you 5-man stack, you give yourself the much higher floor with a good enough ceiling.
How small would the slate have to be before you allowed one of your hitters to face the pitcher?
Most of the time, like 3 or 4 games. I think I made an exception the other day on like a 5-gamer when Dylan Bundy was pitching.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's like 4 or 5 games normally. I'll at least consider it if it's like a Dylan Bundy or a Marco Estrada spot or something where I think the pitcher can pitch well, but is going to give up a home run or two. 2 or 3 games is where I am comfortable just kind of doing it anyway.
Okay. I wonder if like having one is just something you should probably do. but I don't know. It's probably going to hurt you more often than not.
I think it depends on the pitcher's price point too. JT Riddle hitting a 3-run home run off Max Scherzer kind of ruins Max Scherzer's day. Kristen Stewart hitting a 3-run home or a 2-run home run or whatever, even a 3-run home run off of Cole Stewart at 4,600 doesn't really ruin his day. You can still pretty easily score 12 to 15.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's probably one of those things where you'd be willing to check that box for everybody under 6,000 in salary or something. Right. Yeah, a home run against a 11K pitcher is really limiting the ability to have like a breakthrough game without striking out 15 or something.
Yeah, exactly. The more margin of error at their price point, the more you can look to take hitters against them. And it kind of works out anyway, because normally the cheaper pitchers are the ones that aren't very good.
All right, here's the last thing we'll take a look at, because we're at an hour now, and then we'll bail. So 13 games yesterday. Let's say that we're doing an aggressive 4-4 stacking combination. And I think this is going to play a lot into the structure of these stacks. If you were to stack each team equally on a 13-game slate, that's 3.9%. You would set everybody to 3.9%. You'd run a crunch, you'd get each team once. Fill that out for 150 lines. Ignore the fact that it's not going to add up to 150. You guys know what I mean. What is the most you'd be willing to stack one individual team?
On a 13-game slate?
Yeah.
I kind of had copied your formula, but I think 10 to 15-ish.
Okay. So, and this is something that I haven't totally played around with. Let's say that we have 2 4-man stacks in here. Do you think there's merit in setting those stack caps at different numbers?
Yeah, that's something that, and again, I haven't played around with it a ton, but I think that when I do a 5 and a 3 or 4 and 4, I like on one of the sides to limit the teams that I'm willing to use to like the teams that I really like.
Yeah.
And then the other side, I just include all of them and let it go.
And I think that I'm trying to do sort of the analog here. So right now I have it set for 10 and 10, 10% on the first side, 10% on the second side. What I'm going to do, though, is switch it to 15 and 5.
Yeah.
So the teams that I like will be prioritized in the 15% side. And then I should get a lot of unique combinations with other teams.
Right.
In theory. So I'm going to let that rip. Final crunch.
The downside to that is you're not going to get very many combinations of teams that you like.
Probably. It all depends on how many times you think, or what that number is. So now the Fantasy Cruncher has that stacks section. We can see, who is the most combined team, right, and sort of not necessarily, do I wish I had this combination more, but what is the ceiling of one particular combination of very liked teams?
Right.
And I don't know. Look, you can play the all-in strategy. You can be what Sean's on and have really weird construction. If you can handle the variance in only going to 2 teams, by all means, you might have a stretch of 2 months where you don't even cash.
Right. And that's something that I think I actually take on more than most people. And it's something that it's one of the things that I've been trying to figure out how I want to do it with Max Entry, because before I started playing around with this, I was, a 10-ish lineups made by hand thrown into Max Entry fields. And one of my my big strategy was to have a pretty heavy, all-in approach where whether I'm all in on a pitcher, I'm all in on, a group of core hitters in basketball, I'll go all in on a core of, 5 to 6 guys. It was to basically be okay with losing, entire slates, but be able to, when my core does hit, put myself in a position where I have all of my lineups kind of vying for the number 1 spot.
Yeah, and basketball obviously very different. Having a guy or 2 or 3 at 80% is a very reasonable proposition. It's a different sport. Yeah. When you get a guy that's at 4K and you know that he's going to get 30 something minutes, there is good chalk in that. It's right. There's a reason he's getting to 80%. It's because functionally speaking, he's going to reach his value metric and allow you to spend more money on different guys. all that. The key takeaway there is sort of like, what's the best way to talk about this? It's the reason that you pay down to the 4K pitchers. That's the analog to basketball. It's not that you want to get to more expensive things. It's that you want to have the option of going to more expensive things more frequently. Right. You want to be able to spend up more for a guy like, I don't know, let's just say Alex Bregman at 4,900, because he's generally going to be more likely to score more points than a guy at 3,900.
Right.
So, yeah, that's why I will happily eat chalk in the NBA as a value play.
It's more predictable too, obviously.
Right.
And and value's different. I mean, like projecting value in baseball is just, for hitters, it's just so insanely hard and wrong most of the time.
Yeah.
Like, point per dollar hitting is just useless in the scheme of like tournaments, like, winning them. Whereas basketball, I mean, if you can actually say like, okay, if I can get 5x plus 5 from this guy and 5x plus 5 from this guy, as long as you're using a multiplier that factors in their salary, you can basically be what you're happy with. Whereas with baseball, cool, my 3K hitter got 6 points. That still doesn't really help me.
Exactly. So I crunched 150 lines. This was the 4-4 stacks. 15% in the first group of 4, 5% in the second. I got the Indians with the Angels 6 times. I don't know what you can't quickly sort it to see Angels with Indians. I don't know if it does it like that. So in theory, the opposite will be there somewhere. So 6 is the most I got any 2-team combination. I got 4 separate 6s. Indians, Angels, Rockies, Angels, Rockies, Pirates, Astros, Brewers. 6 feels like it might be too low. But 6 out of 150 lines as a Cleveland Angels stack, like it's 4%. That's probably reasonable. I don't really know what the answer is though.
Does it change if if you were to say, instead of doing 15 and 5, if you did 10 and 10, but in one of the groupings you manually limited it to whoever you have as like your favorite or your highest projected stacks, so you would still get 20% of those stacks, but you would end up with a higher percentage of Indians and Angels or whoever your projection is liked, instead of it being limited.
I mean, I would imagine it certainly would work out.
Yeah.
Because, this is basically just almost guaranteeing that I get some Braves, some Rays, some Marlins. These are the teams that were in the dumpster yesterday. So I guess that's a good way to tell. If I go to just the stacks used, I only got 21 of the 26 teams. So it's still leaving out the garbage. I didn't get Braves or Rays or Marlins in any of these lines, even by setting that to 5. So I think that's probably working as intended. I think it's honestly not giving me enough of the teams that I like.
Right.
Colorado got to like 10.5 or 11%. I think I would be safely happy to go a bit more aggressive than that. But I got to 179.45, so again, I'm still in that 120 to 130 range. It doesn't seem like I can get to that correct structure, wherever it may be. Lineup rewind, man. I could lose hours upon hours doing this. Yeah,
it's a productive use of time, I think, as long as you're trying to come up with ways to be better.
Yeah. All right, guys. That is it for right now, unless Adam has anything else.
Nope.
Okay. Tune into From A to B at 2:30. Deeper dive from 5 till 6. Live before lock. Jake and EMAC breaking it down tonight. No Chris. Friday, there will not be, and I mentioned this on the last one, there will not be a live process show at 11 o'clock on Friday. Instead, at 11 o'clock, you will have access to a video of me doing essentially what I just did now, but I'm going to walk through my entire process for the NFL. I'm going to load in my groups. I'm going to load in projections. I'm going to show you guys what I will do, what that process will look like for this coming Sunday for the NFL. So check that out. It's going to be a big time deep dive into the process of using Fantasy Cruncher for the NFL. Tune into that, everybody. That's everything, guys. Thank you for joining us. Check this out. Go back through, play and lineup rewind. See if you can find some hypothesis that is going to beat me, because clearly whatever I had for yesterday wasn't going to work. Best of luck, everybody. We'll talk to you later.